Right, here's the question. Let's actually talk about your team at LCS then. We've talked about a lot of stuff around it. Right, here's the thing I have to say. If this was a preseason episode, I would say on paper, that roster's like, look, there's a lot of recycled names there from LCS over the years. It's not like any, aside from you, there's basically no like, this is the player with the potential and all that jazz. I wouldn't have thought it'd be that good a lineup. I have to say, right, and this is true, Monty can corroborate this. It's not something I would just say on camera to be nice or whatever. I actually genuinely think from watching the LCS games, this split, even though your team's record's not that great, and obviously there's a lot of parity in the middle of the table, I actually think the games the team has won, and even some of the ones that were lost, are actually generally pretty good. Like, I've seen some pretty legit games from the ones I watched. What have you thought of the team overall? Because it's a very eclectic bunch of players. Like I said, it's just looks like someone just put a load of players from the last few years of LCS in one hat and just picked them out.
I mean, well, I'll say when you actually look at our record, I think I will fairly say we pissed away 3 wins. The win yesterday against Team Liquid, the win against TSM, and the loss against Team Liquid yesterday, the loss against TSM, and the loss against Golden Guardians recently. Those 3 losses were just so unacceptable to be losses, and if you actually, say they became wins, right? Then we're 7-4 in theory, right? And we're like a top 3, top 4 team. And that's what I do feel like we are right now in our level. Like, I really think we're not a bottom team. It sucks that our record, shows that we are a bottom team, but it is still spring split, and I still think that there's a high chance we can make playoffs. And I think once we make playoffs, at that point, we can really kind of launch ourselves, Like, I feel like we had like so many issues at the start that we've like kind of worked out now, and now we're like making mistakes on stage that are like, in my opinion, easy fixes, like egregious macro calls or like just egregious mechanical misplays and stuff, right? And I feel like these things, hopefully there is a way to fix them and that they don't happen in the future, but it's like, I don't know. Obviously it's hard to keep your morale high when you have a low record and you're losing a lot, right? Like that's the hardest part, I would say, to like actually have that copium or whatever you want to call it that I just said, where it's like, listen, we just pissed away those 3 losses, right? And they're so close to being wins. Like, they should have been wins, and just kind of keep being focused on the future right now, right? That's kind of what I'm in my team trying to push forward the most, just because I think, it's hard to keep a really positive atmosphere all the time, right? But that's what I'm trying to push out.
I agree with you. If you talk about some of the other ones, like the TSM one, the Golden Guardian, like, look, those are all your team. Obviously, you lost that one. The TL one, I agree. I think that's actually pretty reasonable to even make the case of, like, we take something from that game. Because the problem is their roster is fucking insane. Like, on paper, they don't even have to actually play as well. They just have better players. So it's also going to make actually closing games like that way harder anyway when you've just got fucking big names like that, isn't it?
I mean, I think, though, a lot of what's so interesting, like, for me about watching you guys play is that you kind of like really oscillate between quite decisive good calls and then just like really confusing non-calls. And then sometimes you like, I've noticed, especially sometimes when Destiny's engaging, you guys will over pursue. If an engage doesn't immediately work, like you'll blow some cooldowns and then you'll keep pursuing when you guys should just break off if the engage didn't work. Or like, and in the TL game, you're in an instance where, they make some bad calls around the Baron. You respond, I think, very well by continuing to put the pressure on, and you guys get into a game state where, I mean, I was watching the game yesterday and I was literally just in front of my TV and I was like, oh, well, I was talking to my wife and I was like, oh, this is done. Like, they're just going to back off. They have basically free Elder Baron into game end. And then you guys just like randomly fought in the base, arrows like attacking the Nexus. The rest of you are trying to fight the team. And it's like, it really sucks because like it feels like that game was so in the bag. And at times it gets very like chaotic. And it's not like I can say, well, sometimes you're being consistently over aggressive because, in the game versus TSM, when you were playing Camille, you were not aggressive enough, in my opinion. Like, you were strong enough that you could have dove them, on your own and tried to push that advantage more and not let them back in the game. So I think it's hard because like the TL game was like you were too aggressive when you should have backed off, gone after the objectives. In the TSM game, you were not aggressive enough in pushing your lead. So it's hard to, find that balance because it's not one consistent issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, I think it comes down to like player experience at the end of the day, and also just being able to recognize what to do in the moment. You know, like I think, and I say this sometimes, like it just comes down sometimes to like the in the moment game sense that you have, and I think we do go for really sometimes flippy situations. Like that end call is a flip. You know, we're opting into a 4v4 ending the game. Even so, it should be a winning 4v4 if we play mechanically well. We, like you said, have a free game if we go Baron and Elder, right? So it's obviously in the moment, you might think like the flip, you might not recognize as a team or as players or whatever that the 4v4 is as flippy as it is, right? But looking back afterward from like a clear perspective, it's like, yeah, taking the Baron and Elder is like securing the win, you know, like practically securing the win, you know? So I don't know. I mean, it does suck.
Well,
because
it feels like in some ways one problem leads to another one, right? Because it feels like when you guys weren't aggressive enough in the TSM game, right, you lose the game because you're not pushing your advantage to its fullest capacity. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, now comes along this Team Liquid game, and that's at the back of your mind, and you're looking at a Nexus with no turrets on it, and you're like, well, sure, we could go back and do these objectives, but remember the TSM game where we didn't play aggressively enough?
Yeah.
And like, you know, sometimes I think you can get caught in that trap as a team where because you don't want to you're afraid of making the same mistake again. So instead of thinking about it, you just make the wrong call, but for a different reason, for fear of the first reason. If that makes sense.
I mean, I mean, I think it's more, it does like things that have happened in past games definitely do have an effect on a team. You know, like I think like going into like what lessons you learned from that game, you're going to try to put into future games, right? Like I think that we definitely right now have at least recognized that we have like this problem of like this late game decision making or like mid to late game decision making where we're not just choosing the right thing to do every time. And we're going to have to like work on the consistency for it, right? Like it's hard to say how we'll do that. I think that that's going to be something that we will have to figure out. But I think for me, at least like my personal goal is just to like make sure that I keep laning consistently well and that I don't add like, and that I actually try to add my voice more in a way to like what I think we should do in like mid game, you know? Like I am the least experienced player on my team, and I think I still have a very strong voice on my team, but I think that right now I want to like make sure that I'm leveling up my voice like as much as I possibly can. You know, like I think that like I think that if I can have way more confidence like entering the mid game, like our early mid game, I think that I could actually like make the game a lot easier to play. Like right now, and I think I'm getting better at like for my personal improvement right now. I think like for me, like once I have to stop focusing on like my laning as much, for example, I can actually like kind of think more and more like outside of just lane phase and outside of just like early game planning. Like I can actually build up on that for myself, and I think like I've definitely been reaching that point right now, just because I think laning right now for top lane to me seems not that hard. I think the meta is not that hard to lane for top lane. I think if you see most of my games, my laning has been very winning or consistent. So it's gotten now to the point where I have to take on more of a role, I think. And that's how I feel, at least. And I'm confident that I'll be able to, like, just, you know, I like to just speak for my own personal goals. Like that's my personal goal, and that's what I want to like kind of bring on this like last stretch for playoffs. So
I mean, you have been kind of the pillar of your team, and your team definitely has played pretty significantly around you. You're one of the teams that hasn't opted into like the enchanter low economy top lane. In terms of the resources that you take from the team, you're right up at the top of the league when it comes to gold damage. I think you're actually the lowest death top laner, if I'm by death percentage, or you're second lowest to someday. So you're actually doing a fuck ton. And I think people like don't really appreciate that about you. And stats in top lane are obviously a little weird this split because of the low sample size and certain players playing like multiple enchanter games. But straight up, you haven't been dying a lot. You're only 16% of your team's deaths, right? And you're pushing out a ton of the damage, and you're being relied on to be in that carry position. And I think a lot of the time, the mistakes that are being made are teamwork mistakes, but you are appropriately applying pressure and doing your job within the team. And then it's like these team fight over pursuits, like the example is like the time where you were TPing into the bot lane in that team fight against Liquid in the kind of like earlier mid game. Where it's like you guys kind of botched your engage, and instead of just walking away, like you continue to pursue these fights with a bunch of abilities on cooldown. Like that's something I think is a recurring issue with you guys, right? But when you've been on your own, I'd love to hear what you think about the Bwipo tank Shyvana pick, because that seemed kind of troll to me. But do you think that's like, do you know why he picked it into your graves?
Yeah, no, I actually talked about it. In an interview, I said, I think that the pick is actually not bad, and knowing, and I even spoke to Kyoto about it, right? I mean, it's a pick that right now is a tank answer into Graves that doesn't bleed so many plates. The thing that Team Liquid actually did that game that protected the Shyvana was they level 1 ganked our mid laner with their bot lane and killed him. And if they didn't do that, what would have happened is the Shyvana would have had a lot more dive time, like would have gotten dove a lot more in the early game. Like she was permanently shoved in, like half HP without her potion to my potion, a bit nuanced with the laning stuff, but she would have been dove. She would have been dove early game a lot more, and the pick would have definitely just looked a lot worse. But if you can isolate that lane in a 1v1, I'm never going to solo dive Shyvana as Graves, and I'm never going to kick her out of lane to like make her base while I don't need to base. Like these kind of things won't actually happen with Shyvana just because she's going to just wave clear every wave in the creeps and just run away. And at some point, like after first base, but before first base is when I think you should punish the pick. And we couldn't do that because of our game state. And that's why the pick looked breathable. I think way later in the game, it should be a bit useless just because I think I'll just one shot her in team fights. And, she is tanky, but we are like a low damage comp to some degree. Like if our Caitlyn's not really ahead and our Ahri's not really ahead, then I'm kind of the only one doing damage to her at that point. Because we have a Xin Zhao jungle, right? But I think the pick itself, the only goal of the pick is literally just to try to nullify Graves in the early game, 1v1, and then be a tank for the team. So hopefully your bot lane's winning, hopefully your mid lane's winning, and now you get, you guys can hopefully win the game. You know what I mean? Like, you have a tank now, you have a tank who didn't bleed 5 plates to Graves, and now you can win the game. Like that's supposed to be the goal of the pick. And obviously Bwipo was trolling. He tried to go for the 1v1 on me and got outplayed. He shouldn't do that. If he's not dying there, his game state would be a lot better too. But I think he was doing a good job. Like he went for a few reckless all-ins on me in that lane and was like getting me pretty low. Like I think if you actually rewatch, like if there was a pro view to watch of that game, you could actually kind of see what the Shyvana's role is supposed to fulfill. And people are kind of like, oh, God, Bwipo troll picked this. But no, they were definitely like practicing this pick. I expected them to actually like pick something like Shyvana or something that, like I was expecting something weird like, like Shyvana or, I don't know, like Mundo or something, like some creative tank in a way. And because to put a more perspective on that, people have been playing Shyvana top in Champions Queue. Like I've seen people like Impact playing it, Jenkins playing it, like these random top laners, LCS top laners in the league pulling it out. So I'm like, it's not a completely random pick, I don't know where it came from, but it's definitely not completely random. So, yeah.
You can't talk shit on Jenkins. He's not even in the worst team, is he? Fucking TSM's below Jenkins. There you go. The Jenkins doctrine. That's how I'm judging teams now. If you're below Jenkins, you suck. There you go. There you go. What do you want? He's only second last or whatever. I still can't get over the fact TSM's last in the league, mate. They'll never settle with me. They'll never settle.
It's not right. It's really not right.
It isn't, is
but,
it?
well, now it's right. Now it's right. But it definitely isn't normally right.
Is Whippo actually playing, like, when you play him in solo queue and scrim, does he actually play like a maniac all the time? Like you'd expect?
Yeah. He's one of the most aggressive top laners, I think. I definitely think him and Summit are the best laners right now. For sure. I don't always think what he does is smart in lane. But I respect how aggressive he is. You know, I think it's definitely creative. I think he has the most creative champion pool. I think Summit is the better laner, though, overall. Like, 1 versus 1, the best laner. I think Whippo is the smarter player, though, for sure. I think Whippo knows how to play with his team better, for sure, than Summit. But Summit is just really good mechanically in the lane, yeah. So I'm actually versing him next week, and I'm really excited because the last time I versed him, I was playing, I believe, Jace versus Malphite, which, you know, I had like a decent CS lead, and then I got frozen on, and our team play was really bad, and I was zoned from like 3 waves, and yeah, that was just, you know, that was my last experience laning against Summit. It wasn't the most skillful thing, wasn't the most fun thing, but I'm hoping to play like a really spicy top matchup against him next week, and, you know, kind of like show up against him, because I hate this narrative that people pushed out that's like, man, Summit, I mean, he is shitting on every NA top laner. You know, he shit on Licorice, Soul killed Licorice, Soul killed Fake God in Gnar versus Jace, which was just like, I don't know how the fuck that happened. And who else? Kumo. Oh my god, I don't even want to talk about what he did to Kumo in Jace versus Graves. That was one for the history books. And then I guess there's me as the last NA top laner that. Oh, Jenkins. Wait, what did he do to Jenkins? Did he verse him yet? Oh my god, Jenkins, the Gnar versus Camille. He was up like 70 CS at like 11 minutes or something in Gnar versus Camille as a Gnar. I don't even know how that happened. I don't even know how that happened.
I'll give him props as well, because obviously it's rare that the Korean players who are like the real Koreans, not just like a Korean American who's like a second generation, it's rare that they have good like Twitter game. But I did see when he did a tweet where he just goes, real God versus fake God, which is like, that fire if you're from the West, but like for a Korean, that's pretty good actually. Like, fair play.
No, it's fair play. I don't know if he has like a ghostwriter or something. I really don't know. Like, maybe, you know, he's got like a C9 ghostwriter. Like, I really don't know, but he's got some good Twitter game.
That wasn't bad. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Again, I'm excited to verse him because like people are just kind of writing off like every top laner in the league right now is versing him and just getting destroyed. But like,
yes,
I haven't versed him and got destroyed yet. You know, like I was actually doing like well in my lane against him, and
okay.
I'm excited to verse him. I don't think I'm a bad laner, and I think that finally versing someone who everyone's like glorifying again, kind of like the Alfari situation last year, where I can lane against them and do well, can kind of just like put people, I don't know, like
you get your stock
up, shut people up, you know, like exactly. Get my stock up and shut people up, because like I don't think he's that much of a better laner than me from versing him. And I want to prove that, you know.
Here's the thing. What we need now to complete the circle is he needs to trash talk you on Twitter. Like, I saw there was another good one afterwards where he had a picture where he embedded a photo of him and somebody who was obviously a mate of his or something. And then he's just put, today one of these guys will die, which is like, again, straight fight about it, but it's like, fucking hell, the wording on this is a bit rough, but okay. So all I want is in the game, one of these two outcomes has happened. Either shit on him in the game, fair play, you get all the credit then. Or if he shits on you, it's all I'm saying, someone get the word out there to Summit. If you shit on Revenge, please at least trash talk him. Make it funny. Like, put in Twitter,
honestly,
like,
I mean, he's been bold.
There you go.
He's been bold. He's been tweeting out shit talk before every game, you know, like, which I respect. You know, it's respect.
There you go.
So I wanna see what he'll say about me, and then I will definitely have a very good clapback if I shit on him. And now if I get shit on,
you gotta take it then, yeah.
I take the L. Hey, I'll give him a handshake, you know, hey, like, well played. You know, like, I got shit on before the game on Twitter, and hey, I got shit on during the game. But I'm really excited for sure. Just for like a personal benchmark to see how I can lane against him on stage. I really hope I don't end up like drafted into like some boring tank matchup or something. But yeah, I want something spicy against him, and just hopefully have like a really good game.
I also think that's actually low-key the player that LCS should be targeting. Stop doing this thing that you all do, where in the off-season, you really do actually sit down with Faker and Chovy and fucking Knight, and then you go, here's my offer, I'd like to, why you would join Cloud9? And then they just listen, like, out of politeness, or their agent does, and at the end they go, of course, like, you fucking idiot. And then they go and do whatever they were going to do with their lives. Like, the difference is, Summit already had all those years now where he was just in a bottom feeder team in LCK. He'd lost all his hope. He didn't ever think he could go to Worlds. You're not going to win LCK. That's the moment you come in when all the hope is almost gone. You come in and go, look at this enormous sack of money I have, though. And wouldn't you like to play against Impact and Someday and all those guys who used to be good 10 years ago? Come over to the LCS with me. That's how you fucking pitch someone. You don't come in and go, all right, Chovy, I know you've got the offers from like RNG, EDG, and fucking T1, but what about Cloud9? Like, they're not joining that, is he? Like, that, they're never saying yeah to that deal. So, because I've always thought there's always people in LCK who are in like the worst team who are like low-key fire. They're just like the one guy at their role, who's like fucking God tier support or something. So, they're the players you need to bring in, boys. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.